Alright, this here is going to be a guide for Germany and black ice. Um, this guide is going to be sort of treated as a uh, playthrough. I'm just going to talk through the decisions I'm making and the reasons why. This will just be my strategy I'm playing through, and I'll point out at different points. Uh, you can vary from this to some degree. Black Ice is a pretty difficult mod though, and so certain areas there's really not as much flexibility. You can't really, make an all armored car army and expect to win the game, whereas you might in vanilla. So I'll point out stuff like that whenever it's around. Just know there is multiple ways to play, but if you're struggling to figure out you can't even get through a game as Germany, you can follow this, and it should sort of set you up, give you a baseline of uh, ability to play the game as Germany. And from there, you can sort of make modifications as you'd like and make your own playstyle. So, oh, I should have just replaced that one. Whatever. Alright, so as soon as we're in, the startup for Black Ice is going to be a lot more involved than vanilla. So a lot of the usual stuff, national focus. I typically like going for Enter the Rhineland. This is imperative to do early. You'll get a lot of factories from it, political power, resources, which you'll come to see resources are very crucial in Black Ice, so don't want to miss out on that. Some other nice ones you can get to at some point. Uh, these ones over here for political power. Not super urgent, but we'll come back to those if we need them. And some other ones that some people actually recommend you start with are these three: OKL, OKM, and OKH. These three, when you complete all three, you get an extra research slot for doctrine research, which is quite helpful. They're only 7-day focuses as well, so it's not too bad to get through those three. Uh, you do need to do all three to get the research slot. Some people think you just need to do one, but if you read it more carefully, you need all three. Here's one that's 0 days, based on how Hoi 4 works. Uh, it'll still take a day, but that's one you can do for 0.5 stability. It's pretty inconsequential. And then over here you're gonna have your industry stuff, which we'll get to later. So I'm gonna start with Rhineland. Uh, let's do research first. So all-purpose. So you have these research slots. I think you probably know this if you've played Black Ice at all. Uh, certain slots can only research certain things. So pretty standard, similar to vanilla. You want to start with industry. So we're going to hit that with these all-purpose. Concentrated versus dispersed. You could do concentrated, but you'll find as Germany, you're pretty heavily incentivized to go dispersed, largely through focuses. So there's a couple really nice ones. Underground factories here, you cannot get this at all if you go concentrated. It requires dispersed. It's pretty nice, you get 8 mils, but by that point in the game, Dispersed Industry 4, I think that's a 1942 tech, or maybe 1941. Regardless, by that point, 8 mils aren't going to make a world of difference. It's nice to have, but if you go concentrated, this isn't going to hurt too bad to miss out on. This is what really is going to hurt you. You can get this eventually with concentrated, but I believe that's 2 or 3 years later than if you did dispersed. So this is a really nice one. You get more tank and air production, uh, production efficiency cap and growth, and then a bunch of buildings as well. So for those reasons, I tend to want to stick with dispersed for Germany. Also in Black Ice, concentrated has been nerfed. It gives it gives more factories per state as well, which is nice. but it gives negative retention on each level. So that's gonna hurt your ability to upgrade your equipment, and you're gonna be upgrading a lot of equipment, believe it or not. So dispersed. Over here, there's not a lot to research with this research slot this early in the game. Researching ahead of time in Black Ice, not really feasible. Plus 500% uh, uh, research time per year. So you can't really get ahead of time as well as you can in vanilla per se. So some of the key ones to go for, combat engineers, these are a must-have. They're great for tank divisions or if you're pushing with your infantry divisions as well. Uh, this is a 1937 one, these three here, which are nice to grab as well. And the only other one that you can get early on is paratrooper equipment here. Which, even if you're not planning on doing paratroopers, you can get commando battalions with it later, so that could be nice. Other than that, not much to do early, so you're kind of forced to... Oh, wait, this one you can do, armored trains. I tend not to bother with those, but you could do that. So, just going to start with combat engineer. Armor. Alright, so armor, uh, I'm just going to start off and say, armored cars and light vehicles, I do not recommend you research at all. Light vehicles, you could do. These ones are better to research because they give lower fuel usage as you upgrade them. So if you really want to get stingy with your fuel use, that'll help a little bit, but I still don't think it's worth it. Armored cars, on the other hand, as you increase their level, they use more fuel. So it's going to hurt you in that regard. They get better stats, but the issue is with armored cars, you don't really care about their stats unless you're using battalions. So, uh, let's see. Armored car recon equipment. Armored car 2. Yeah, see, it's basically no difference. One breakthrough, one defense, not even one soft attack. It's really not worth upgrading them if you're just using them as support company or if you're using them for garrisons. Only time you'd want to use that is if you're doing armored car battalions, which, you know, they're not great, but, you know, some people have found some roles for them, so don't want to completely write it off. If you're not doing that, though, don't research it. It's not worth it. Generally, as Germany, the first thing you're going to research with this slot is always going to be the Panzer IIA. So that's what we're going to do. Navy. The intended route for Germany is to go with submarines. You're going to do a lot of submarine stuff. And they're cost effective. They can do some damage. But I don't think they're fun. And I'm not all that great at Navy, but super heavy battleships are cool. So that's what I'm going to go with. And you can mirror that if you'd like. Or you can just disregard Navy entirely. That probably will help you more in the long run because you're going to save a lot of resources that you would otherwise be spending on these, you know, super heavy battleships. But it's not really that big of a deal, whatever you decide to do with Navy. Navy's not really critical for Germany's gameplay. So I'm just going to go with some, not that one. Yeah, I'm going to go for some real heavy ships. Alright, now for aircraft research is really overwhelming. I'm going to simplify it a lot for you. Ignore everything except either the BF-109s or the BF-110s as far as fighters. Late game, you can go for the uh, Focke-Wulf multi-rolls. These are good. The TAs, both of these are very good. That's an interceptor or a multi-roll one. Either one of those is very good. and ME210 and ME410 heavy fighter. The 210 is really not that great, but the 410 is amazing. The DO335, again, sort of the same story. The A is all right, but the B is fantastic. Other than that, I don't think there's much really that's great with these. I haven't really looked through the night fighters, but I don't think they're fantastic. But then you have close air support. Close air support, uh, ignore pretty much everything. I don't think any of these are good. Actually, that's not horrible, ground attack, but that's really expensive as well. I guess it's not that much more expensive, whatever. The main ones you want to look at for close air support as Germany, Stukas, the Junker 87s. Uh, these, relatively cheap, give a lot of ground attack. That's very, very good ground attack. Another option is this Heinkel 118. It has a lot more range, so it's pretty nice. Although these later ones, you can get a lot more range on as well. So it's a bit of a wash there, but that is also a feasible option I have done before. It's also nice because it's only one model, so you're not going to be switching from year to year. But downside of that is you're not getting the upgrades either. So while the ground attack is a match here, it stays at 10.6, whereas Stukas go up and up and up. By 1942, which isn't that late, honestly, you're at 22.2 base ground attack, and you can upgrade that a lot more through modification. Uh, Other than fighters and close air support, the only things I really would pay any attention to is naval bombers, maybe. Uh, which I would go for the AR-95. It's cheap. It does quite a good job. This one's the same naval attack and way more expensive. Not sure what the point is. But yeah, just produce a ton of these. I haven't looked at this one actually. Slightly more expensive. Oh, a lot more range. Uses more resources though. Yeah, I would just stick with the AR-95. Um, and then, I mean, you can do some of these ones here if you want to look through Germany's bombers can be nice, but I mean, notable mentions like the fast bomber starting at this one is quite good. Medium bombers are pretty flexible just like in vanilla. I don't think Germany has really good strat bombers until these ones here are decent. Light bombers, I think they might be alright. Recon. Recon's actually pretty nice. You can use it to get a lot of intel, but not really. That's sort of niche gameplay. That's not really that important. For this, I'm going to be using the BF-110 and the Stuka for this playthrough. So I'm going to start with the Stuka because this is ahead of time, so why bother? Let's start on the Stuka. For production. So generally, I'd say start mills as soon as you can, construction-wise. For Germany, a lot of people have this idea, I don't know where it really started, that you should build civs until either 1937 or 1938 and then start building mills. I think that's a fine strategy for some of the allied nations maybe. It depends on the circumstances, but Germany, you have MIFO bills here. 37.5% military factory construction speed. Bice actually has this nifty UI here so you can see it really easily. Plus 56%. You really want to take advantage of that. And it's only going to get better as you get more of the modifiers and you go through here. Get more advisors and all that. So you really want to take advantage of the mills as much as possible. Now the only caveat I'll make to that is recently, or it used to be the case that the PZ-1B, the Panzer 1B here you start with, was quite good because it could convert later to a much better vehicle. That vehicle has now been nerfed, so it's not that great. So now I would actually say it's a bit more acceptable to produce civs at the start as Germany, but even then I wouldn't overdo it. I think this is probably the extent of what you should build, max out in the East and West Berlin, Brandenburg, and Rhineland, and that's it. So I think that's actually what I'm going to do this time, because I am not really going to front load my production like I might have before when the Panzer 1B was a lot better. I might do something like this. Get this up to 37 factories, because that's just enough to use up your production there, or assembly capacity, and get you a lot of early production on tanks going. But now, these aren't very good, so I'm not going to bother. So I'm not going to do medium bombers. I am going to switch this fighter to the, whatchamacallit, transport. And the reason for that is you're going to have a decision pop up when the Spanish Civil War starts, which requires you to have 10 transports. And it's a pretty good decision, gets you a lot of air XP, so might as well try to do that. You start with 4 in an air wing here, just put those in stockpile. But you'll see tactical bombers you have also have a similar appearance. So you can delete those ones, put those in stockpile. You need to update this, so you can just click it. Oh, you need to actually change the number. Alright. And then you can convert from stockpile. So that's going to save you a lot on the resources and the IC. Once you get to 10 of these, you can ignore this. Drop this. Otherwise, you can convert all 100 of them if you'd like. You can use them for air supply missions. I don't find that all that useful in practice. In theory, it sounds great. In practice, it doesn't really work out all too much, but again, that's something you can try. So, infantry equipment here. I'm going to actually overproduce this. I'm going to drop Panzer 1B down a bit. And the reason I'm going to overproduce infantry equipment is because you can get a lot of Army XP from Lend-Lease. So I'm going to produce a ton of rifles and just give them away. And Army XP will help us get ahead on doctrines and all that, so that's going to be great. So let's try to organize this disgusting production. SS uniforms, you can use those later for SS divisions, or eventually I think around 1942 you get SS battalions you can put in your regular divisions. They're slightly better, I think, generally. Maybe worse defense and breakthrough, but more soft attack, something like that. For the sake of consistency and not having to produce a ton of different things, I just get rid of that. I don't use SS troops at all. Sport equipment, that's a must-have. I hate how this starts out. Very poorly organized. Light vehicles. Throw that down with the other vehicles. Artillery prime mover, that is only if you're doing heavy AA or heavy artillery. Otherwise, this is completely useless. Well, I should note that's for motorized heavy artillery and motorized heavy AA. So if you're just putting like the horse-drawn for your infantry divisions, that's fine. You can ignore that. Where am I? Okay, so with artillery, mountain artillery, that's pack artillery. Generally, I don't find very useful for Germany. It's ever so slightly more expensive than light artillery, ever so slightly less powerful. It does a little bit less damage than light artillery, but it does a lot better in rough terrain, like mountains, hills, and it's better for amphibious landings. So for Marines, it's great. For Mountaineers, it's great. All those special forces, it's great. Uses less supply as well, so in low supply regions, like when you're pushing in Russia, it could be useful. Generally, I don't find it worth the investment, so I'm not going to be using that. Infantry guns, that's mandatory. Light artillery. Yeah, medium is far more expensive than light artillery. It's about double the cost, if I recall correctly. Oh, it's like 2.5 times the cost. And the stats aren't that much better. They're not 2.5 times. Yeah, it's about 50% better stats and 250%. or 150% more cost. So I'm not going to say it's outright not worth it, but it's only something you'd really want to do if you were putting your uh, putting your money on artillery, basically. And I am not doing that. I am going to be putting my money on tanks. Heavy artillery, similar to medium, I would say, but it's a little more selective. So medium, uh, I should I should look at infantry. So infantry, you start with light, medium, and heavy. So heavy is a support company. Light and medium are regular line battalions. The difference here, if you look, it's about four more soft attack for the medium from the light. But again, I don't think that's really worth it. If you want to go really expensive on your infantry, you could get that. Look at that, 98 soft attack versus what I'm going to do, which is drop the heavy artillery and go all light. That's all the way down to 63 soft attack. I don't mind though because I'm not going to be relying on my infantry. They're just there to hold the line, make sure I don't get snaked by the AI. What else is there? So I'm going to drop the heavy artillery. Okay. Anti-air. Anti-air and anti-tank, you really don't need many factories on. I haven't played vanilla in a while, but I'm pretty sure I remember you need a lot of factories on it. So if you're coming from a vanilla background, just keep that in mind. A lot of these things seem crazy with the differences in production. Everything's a lot higher usually. Anti-air and anti-tank, not so much. Five, I would say even four, we should probably be fine. Light artillery, I'll go up to eight. That's, that's probably even excessive, but whatever. I'm just gonna play it safe with that. I don't want to have a shortage. Horse transports, 10 should be good. Light vehicles, uh, two or three. Let's go with three. Actually, yeah, you're gonna want to go to trade eventually, and we're gonna deal with this. But I want to turn on this rubber refinery we start with, so I get an idea of how much rubber we're working with. Yeah, I'll go up to three. Where's my motorcycle? Motorcycles are really what I'm going to be leaning heavily on. Transport trucks and motorcycles are a mainstay of early divisions for your tank divisions. And in fact, you start with both here. So, motorized infantry, pretty standard infantry with trucks. You also have motorcycles though, and they're essentially a cheaper version, slightly worse stats. So if I compare, that's annoying. It's like, um, yeah, that's all right. Whatever this will have to do. So it's slightly lower stats than motorized, but it's quite a bit cheaper. And so I think for early game, motorized motorcycles are just better, especially as Germany. Uh, Most of the early war is not going to be all that difficult, so I'm not too worried about losing out on a small amount of stats there. And by the time it is very important for Barbarossa, we're going to have mechanized anyway, so it's not too big of a concern in my book there. All right, so yeah, let's go with 8, 10. Let's go with 11. Transport trucks. We're gonna still want some of these because we're gonna be using it for support companies. But yeah, if it's not gonna be a mainstay of our divisions, don't need that much. See, why are machine guns down there? That's just weird, weird design. Alright, vehicles. Mortars, gonna move up. Armored cars, I think we already went over this. I'm not gonna produce them. They use tank capacity as well. A lot of engine capacity. Rubber, I don't like it. How much steel? 3 steel. Wow, yeah, that's that's a lot. Recon, 2, maybe 3. I'll stick with 2. I usually go for 3 and just end up with way too much, so let's try this. Cav equipment. We're gonna start with 2, but eventually we're gonna drop that to 1. Let's put this at the bottom. So heavy transport trucks, that's gonna be very important for our supply. So our trains, I'm gonna put up to 3 for now. Trucks, I want to go up a few, maybe. Honestly, we don't need that many on trucks. Let's just do 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. That's gonna put me up to 16, negative 16 rubber. Let's get greedy. Drop the mortars and drop the infantry gun to 1. So that's not a bad looking starting production, I think. Yeah, we have all the main stuff. Garrison equipment, just gonna keep it on a low number here. Around 1938, we're probably gonna start slowly increasing this more. We'll see. I mean, we don't really need any until the war starts, so I guess that's kind of the case for everything, but here's Navy. Again, if you don't want to do Navy, you can just delete all of these. Just go through and exit out of all of these. That's what I used to do when I was first learning Black Ice as Germany. It's just a hassle, not worth it. But if you want to just have fun with it, it can be nice. Alright, so I'm going to produce everything that's in queue here. Yeah, a lot of these suck, but that's alright. They're just fluff. If you really want to micro a lot, I'm probably not going to in this campaign. Navy's going to be sort of a side topic. It's not going to get much attention. But if you really wanted to micromanage it, you could like refit all of these different classes and make them actually usable. But not going to be a priority for me. Alright, so as soon as you're done with production, you're going to want to swing over here to your trade tab and have a look at your refineries and energy, actually, for that matter. Energy, do this. Lowest priority on Navy. What this means is when your power exceeds your capacity, which it will because it's a pain to manage, you are not going to lose any effect on your military factories, your civilian factories, or your refineries. I find that losing any of those can be absolutely devastating. So it's better to just screw over your navy, which doesn't really matter. Here you have energy production. I don't really understand this. It doesn't seem to actually increase the total amount of energy you produce. Yeah, it just uses less coal and more fuel, I guess. I mean, I guess for countries that don't really have much coal, I suppose it helps. But you have a lot of coal, you don't have fuel, so just leave that be. Refineries, you have a ton of steel refineries. It's very nice. You're not going to have to worry about building more for a long, long time. Aluminum, honestly, you're probably fine there for quite a while as well. So that is a big advantage of Germany. Yeah, don't import any of the finished goods. You can save a lot by just importing these. So I like to import iron from France. They can be fickle. They get mad at you and then stop letting you import their stuff. Then they forget about it and let you import stuff again. So they can be annoying. But drop 2. Move this to update it. And look, we're good. And chromium, France has it. Let's get it from France. Rubber, Siam. Thank you, Siam. Oil, you're going to want to import oil at the very start. Venezuela is a great pick because they're not going to join the war against you. So, no harm in importing from them. The reason I'm importing from France, France is going to be pretty easy to kill. So Civ boosting them isn't going to make it really harder. Not noticeably more difficult, at least. And in theory, at least, you're going to get a little bit more industry from them by Civ boosting them because they're going to build more. So in theory, it'll help. Probably doesn't really make much of a difference, but I prefer that to importing from, the Soviet Union, who could actually be quite difficult to defeat if you're not really playing well. So, decrypting ciphers. Oh, cryptology. I always start with France. As soon as France is done, I go to the Soviet Union. As soon as they're done, I do the United Kingdom. As far as agency branch upgrades, I'm going to go with expanded operative management. I'm going to do that twice. So as soon as that's done, I'm going to do it one more time. That will just give us some agents to work with. I think we have 2 by default. Yeah. Yeah, that's the queued one. So doing that twice, we're going to get 4 agents right off the bat. And we're going to be preparing collaboration government in France, highest priority, and second priority in the Soviet Union. So doing those as early and as frequently as possible is the move. Alright, let's see here. The production. Got the resources. Okay, so volunteers, just like vanilla, limited by several factors. Limiting factor for you is going to be your number of divisions. So typically I like to produce these guys. I think you only need about 51 to be able to send 3 divisions as volunteers to Spain. So I'm going to start working on those. Once I get some army XP, I'm going to change this because these guys require garrison equipment and I don't want to produce that much. Yeah, that's a lot. So we're going to change this division as soon as we get the chance. But for now, leave that be. Here at the top, you can add little monitor slots. Pretty nice. I like keeping these on consumer goods and weekly stability. You can also do fuel in stock. I don't know. I did that one for a while. I thought it would be helpful, but I found I don't really use it much because you can just look at this bar anyway, and just seeing a number doesn't really tell you much because depending on your fuel capacity, your fuel usage, that could be enough to cause a fuel shortage or it could not. You don't really know, so I don't like that very much. Another one is research speed, quite nice, but again, this is all personal preference. It's just easier to keep track of things. Weekly war sport's another one you can do, but I find that doesn't tend to be an issue unless you're in a really rough spot anyway, so I don't really bother with the clutter. Let's see, what else are we missing? Yeah, these guys are going to change. Alright, let's get rid of some of the clutter here. I'm not going to use this division. I never use special forces, but I always keep them around on the off chance that I do, which I won't. So infantry, tanks, I'm going to convert these guys. They're eventually going to become my coastal garrison. I'm just going to leave them on all my ports to protect from naval invasions. And then special forces, whatever. Let's see. Did I about cover it? Yeah, so we're going to do civs, and then we're going to produce mills basically until the war And as mills fill out, we're going to need to produce assembly plants as well so that we can continue utilizing them to their full capacity. And I believe that is all. Let's see. Yeah, it's been 35 minutes, so I think I'll call this one here. Unless anything jumps out to me last second. Oh, yeah, suppose army, organization, whatever. Alright, tanks. I'm just gonna name this my infantry theater. I'm not gonna bother renaming the tanks because I'm gonna send them as volunteers and it's gonna make the theater disappear. You guys. Oh, I didn't. I need to rename this so it numbers my armies correctly. Yeah, 5 armies. That's what I'll do. Field Marshal, set garrison order. I'm going to include Austria just so that when Austria gets Anschlussed, they'll spread out to there too. Doesn't really matter. One thing to keep in mind, it's nice to have a unit on your capital, which is East Berlin, because you'll have a decision. Actually, can I see it now? Yes, military parade in Berlin, which will give you political power, and that's nice to use every once in a while. After the war starts, you'll find you can do it in some other places too, like Warsaw. Actually, I think it's just capitals. So like Warsaw, Amsterdam, Brussels, Paris. Over time, the amount it gives you increases of political power. So I think Berlin will eventually get up to around 60. Warsaw is another decent one. I think it also gets up to around 60. Everything else I found kind of sucks. Paris is great though. Paris gets up to like 90, I think is the highest political power I've gotten from it. So that's one to keep an eye on. Neat decision there. Did I finish this order? I don't think I did. Doesn't matter, but it's gonna bother me. So finished. And yeah, looks like we're all set. So on the next oh god, episode, I guess, I'm going to play through to who knows when, maybe to the Spanish Civil War or so, but this is going to be a really boring first episode, just the setup, but setup's important. You don't want to be fumbling around later in the campaign because you messed up the start. It's hard to recover when you have a really bad start, so this is just a pretty nice setup, I think. Production, like I said, you know, this will vary depending on some of your preferences, but generally I think this is a pretty solid setup. After we unpause, we might find that we need a little more oil. Maybe not. Well, yeah, we're probably going to need more. Yeah, how about that? Things are going to change. I'm probably going to find Venezuela is only willing to give me 50, and so I'm going to want to drop this down so I'm not giving them factories for nothing. And yeah, we're just going to roll with the punches from there. But for now, that will be all. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was informative. So yeah, subscribe and, you know, I don't know, donate to my Patreon.